Hello everyone, welcome back to Strawberry Podfics. We are reading Hysterical by Spark the Fangirl, Chapter 8. This is Your Hero Academia. Summary. Midoriya is allowed to go to UA as long as he promises not to explode the school. Izuku, it's here! Inko ran into his room, waving a fancy envelope. Midoriya fell out of his chair. My UA acceptance letter? He ran and grabbed it from his mother. Wow, it's heavier than I thought it would be. I wonder if... I'll leave you to it, okay? His mother winked at him as she left. Good luck! Midoriya fumbled with the seal of the envelope, finally ripping it apart, allowing the small disc to fall and roll across the floor. He cursed and dove after it. Before he grabbed it, the disc activated and a giant hologram was cast sideways atop his floor. What? Young Midoriya! All Might's voice boomed. This confused Midoriya, considering the letter was from UA, and he was fairly certain All Might did not work at UA. He would have heard of such a thing if he did. Midoriya picked up the hologram and set it on top of his desk, as there was some unintelligible chatter from someone behind the camera of the hologram. What do you mean, wrong camera? What? Oh, well, why didn't you say so? All Might turned to face the camera that was projecting the hologram. Why even have two cameras if you're just using one of them? What a hassle, he grumbled. All Might? This is just a recording, so I can't hear you. Oh, of course. Not that it matters, considering I'll see a lot more of you since I'll be teaching at UA this year. Midoriya's jaw dropped. It turned out that he was not aware of his idol/mentor. He wasn't quite sure about the exact terms of their relationship, becoming a teacher at his go-to school, the same school he had broken into just a week prior. Midoriya wondered if that meant All Might could give him detention if he found out about that whole escapade. He decided to play it safe and not tell him just in case. But enough about that. Congratulations. Congratulations. You passed the written exam with flying colors. As for the practical, well, just watch the screen. Midoriya watched the recording in which Uraraka approached President Mike and asked for some of her points to be awarded to Midoriya. If his eyes became a little wet, well, no one was there to say anything. Because of your selflessness, I'm sorry to cut All Might off, but I'd like to point out that that is totally not true. Since Midoriya couldn't die, it wasn't really selflessness that drove him. Mind you, I have no idea what it was that drove him, but I figured I'd just remind you that he's immortal, just in case you forgot. Just in case you'd forgotten. You've been awarded 60 rescue points. Oh, and Uraraka got 45 for some reason. Anyways, with that, your total points come to 77, a tie for first place. All Might leaned in closer to the camera, and fair warning, you tied with young Bakugo, so I'd find a bomb shelter before you realize this if I were you. I can't imagine he'll be too happy with that. Midoriya remembered his reaction when they broke into UA. All Might was right. Bakugo was not very happy. Meaning that you passed, kid, All Might said, stepping back. This is your Hero Academia. The hologram winked out. Midoriya was crying so much, he almost missed the hologram turning back on. Huh? The new video showed Nezu sitting in a much too large office chair in his office. Hello, Midoriya. Hello? Nezu chuckled. This is still a recording. Oh, whoops. Don't be embarrassed, it's perfectly understandable. Midoriya thought it was odd how perfectly Nezu was reacting to him, even down to the very timing of his chuckles. He was pretty sure it was actually a recording, which meant that Nezu must have based his speech purely on what he knew about Midoriya. This was not a very comfortable thought to think of, so Midoriya decided to ignore it for now and focus on what Nezu was saying. This extra recording is, of course, about you and Bakugo's little adventure from a week ago. Don't worry, I'm not about to berate you. Quite the opposite, in fact. I'm rather amazed at how you executed it. The very fact that you had the guts to do it, knowing I'd find out, is enough to pique my interest. Midoriya let out a little sigh of relief at that. I do hope you don't mind, Nezu continued. You see, I was simply so curious that I took it upon myself to look into you and Bakugo. That small breath of relief Midoriya had taken now came back full force as he found himself choking on air. He almost missed the next bit as his body tried to punish him for breathing so fast by making him cough. That being said, I found some very interesting things. Midoriya grasped his chair tightly, worried about what the principal had found. Perhaps he knew about Midoriya's quirk or his relationship with All Might, or maybe he even knew about the accidental avocado explosion, or, as all involved now refer to it as, the disaster. He hoped it wasn't the accidental avocado explosion. That would really make it for a terrible first impression. The most intriguing thing I found was some old documents by your quirk doctor from when you were 5. Nezu leaned towards the camera. You have the most fascinating quirk. I understand your reasoning for keeping it quiet, and I have no intentions of telling anyone, he chuckled. It will be more fun to see if your teachers and classmates can figure it out on their own anyway. Even though he was now slightly terrified that the notoriously genius principal was aware of his immortality, Midoriya couldn't help but agree that confusing the rest of his class would be a definite plus to keeping quiet about his quirk. But I feel that you and Bakugo will excel at UA, and I hope that as your principal can help you grow into a successor worthy of the #1 hero. Oh, and it seemed that said principal also knew about One for All. I am so very excited to see what you do during your time here, and there's not a doubt in my mind that you will go far. This is your Hero Academia, Midoriya. Welcome to UA. Midoriya sunk in his seat as the hologram flickered off once more. Suddenly it turned back on, showing Nezu grinning slyly at the camera. One last thing, his grin widened. No avocados in class, please. The picture dimmed again, this time for good. Midoriya simply gaped at the empty silence. He knew everything. And then the next chapter. The next chapter has several parts. So many parts. It's got like 6 parts. And this is only like 6 minutes so far. So I'm gonna just keep on reading. Chapter 9. First Impressions. Part 1. Look out, UA. Here the problem children come. Summary. Didn't anyone teach these two to act civilized? There were only a few weeks till school started back up once more, and Aizawa got a new batch of chaos children. As such, he was preparing the best way he knew, napping. So it was that he was in the middle of a very pleasant dream in which he did not have to deal with overpowered teenagers on a daily basis, but was instead a respectable accountant when his ringing phone woke him up. Because Aizawa was not a fan of ringing phones, he had most people silenced. This meant that if he could hear it, then the call was most likely important. What? He grumbled into the phone. You sound quite tired, Aizawa. I do hope I didn't wake you. Aizawa groaned inwardly at the sound of his boss's voice. It's fine. What do you need? I don't necessarily need anything. I just thought I'd offer you a warning. A warning? Yes, you see, recently it came to my attention that a couple of your students for this year are a bit enthusiastic. What's that supposed to mean? They're, as you would say, problem children. I just wanted to give you a heads up so that you'll have time to prepare yourself. That was a lie. Nezu's only reason for calling was to mess with Aizawa. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure even you'd agree that they have enormous potential. They're just a little volatile. Partially a result of their quirks, but also just their personality, I think. Are you purposely being as vague as possible? What did they even do? Oh, nothing much, just some minor infiltration. What? Among other things. Aizawa sighed, well aware that Nezu was trying to annoy him, and also aware that it was working. The least you can do is tell me their names. You know, I don't think I will. I doubt you'll find it too difficult to figure it out yourself, and I'd really hate to spoil the surprise. Nezu. Goodbye, Aizawa. See you in a few weeks. Aizawa slumped back into his bed, throwing the now silent phone onto the pillow next to him. What was even the point of calling if he wasn't going to give me any information, he grumbled. This was a rhetorical question, both because Aizawa already knew the answer, and because he was not expecting a response. Had he received one, I have no doubt he would be extremely unnerved, considering there was no one aside from himself in the house, and his cat, but his cat was, unlike Nezu, not a talking animal. She also did not care about Aizawa's troubles with his boss and the promise of problem children. As for the reason for Nezu calling, the answer was, of course, that the principal delighted in confusing people with a passion that rivaled even Midoriya's, and truly Nezu was giddy at the prospect of seeing Aizawa attempt to teach the lovely bundle of chaos that was Izuku Midoriya. As for Aizawa, he found himself dreading dealing with Midoriya. Not that he knew he would be teaching Midoriya, nor did he even know who Midoriya was, but he found himself dreading it regardless. Rightfully so, I would say. The first day of school. That desk is meant for school-related materials only. Please remove your feet from atop its surface, as this unseemly behavior of yours is acting as a disturbance for the rest of the class. Ida chopped his arms through the air to emphasize his points. Bakugo glared at him with unhidden contempt. Who shoved a stick up your ass? Besides, I'll have you know I made it into this school too. Therefore, my feet are technically school-related materials. Now fuck off, you two-bit extra. Ida sputtered at the unrestrained profanity. Kachan, stop being a smart-ass, Midoriya said as he dropped his bag on the desk behind Bakugo. He then turned to face Ida. Apologies for my friend here. Kachan has the social skills of a toddler and no regard for basic decency. He glared at Bakugo. Shut up, dumbass. Stop acting like a barbarian and take your feet off the desk. Bakugo gaped. You're taking this privileged asshole's side? Well, excuse me, Ida started. Shut it, nerd, Bakugo snapped at him. I know that look. You think you're fucking better than me. Well, I have news for you, Mr. Elite. Midoriya groaned and cut Bakugo off. This again? Not everyone thinks they're better than you. Just be civil for once in your life and at least try to act respectful. Fucking make me. As if he had been waiting for those words, Midoriya rolled up his sleeves and gave a feral grin before launching himself at Bakugo. This is not proper conduct. Ida looked ready to start vibrating from the stress of the situation. The two boys wrestled, attracting the attention of the rest of the class. As Midoriya struggled to push Bakugo's legs off the desk, who was in turn trying to push Midoriya off of himself. Let go of me, you maniac! Not till you show some respect! Uraraka chose that moment to bounce through the door. Oh, hi Midoriya! She then took a moment to fully comprehend the situation before her. Bad time? Hi Uraraka, he said as he tugged on Bakugo's foot. This turned out to be a bad idea, as there was a shoe attached to the foot. After a moment of tugging, there was no longer a shoe attached as it flew off and soared halfway across the room, narrowly missing Koda, who let out a squeak of surprise. Sorry, let me just take care of this real quick. What's happening? Uraraka leaned over to ask Ida. I believe they are fighting. No dub, but why? You jerk! Leave me alone! Bakugo yelled as he shoved an elbow to Midoriya's face. I will, as soon as the desk, having had far too much of this nonsense, decided to see itself out by tipping over under the strain of the two boys and falling to the ground with a loud crash. Now look what you've done, Kachan! This wouldn't have happened if you weren't climbing on me like a fucking monkey. Not my fault you only learned through physical violence. I'll show you physical violence. Not only did he proceed to show Midoriya physical violence, a lesson that was not necessary considering how accustomed Midoriya was to having fought Bakugo more times than he could count. But the entire class had front row seats to the Midoriya and Bakugo show as the two wove their way around and often through the desks and chairs. You are so immature, Kachan! Should we stop them? Yaoyorozu asked quietly. I don't know if we can. They look pretty intense, Kirishima responded. At that moment, Aizawa walked into the room, shedding his customary sleeping bag like a butterfly emerging from its cocoon. Ah, he thought upon seeing the entire class circling the two boys who were shouting, generally causing a disturbance. These must be the two Nezu warned me about. Oh dear. Notes. Forget an apple. Midoriya's teachers need a bottle of tequila. The next part of this chapter, Chapter 9, First Impressions, Part 2. Please don't break your bones in school. Summary. Aizawa considers retirement. Well, if you weren't such a stubborn ass, explode your fucking face, maniac. Ahem. Aizawa loudly cleared his throat, drawing the attention of the entire class, including Midoriya and Bakugo. Oh shit, Bakugo cursed. Now, Aizawa started before being cut off by a squeal from Midoriya, who had just seen the teacher. Holy heck, it's Eraserhead! Aizawa wasn't expecting to be recognized. Typically his status as an underground hero kept him out of the public eye, which was exactly how he liked it. Still, he refused to show any surprise and instead simply nodded. Eraserhead is mine. You know this, hobo? Bakugo asked Midoriya, interrupting Aizawa once again. Aizawa glared at the boy and activated his quirk, his red eyes glowing threateningly. It wasn't necessary. Midoriya had already shushed him loudly, and Bakugo recoiled before rolling his eyes. Geez, sorry. The way he said it implied that Bakugo was not actually sorry, not even a little bit, but Aizawa decided to let it slide. As I was saying, I am Aizawa Shota, your homeroom teacher. He turned to stare at Midoriya, also known as pro-hero Eraserhead. There was quite a bit of whispering following that declaration. The loudest was, of course, Bakugo, announcing his disbelief that a washed-up stiff like that couldn't possibly be a hero. Followed by Midoriya's rambling mutters that were only comprehensible to himself. Even Bakugo, having known the boy for his entire life, was only able to catch out about 1 in 7 words. This was not very useful, as it as it's very difficult to understand a one-sided conversation when 6/7 of the sentence are unintelligible. Aizawa sighed, 12 seconds into knowing these two, and he was already mentally weighing the pros and cons of retirement. Quiet, please. The class complied. Your gym uniforms are in that box right there. He gestured to the front of the room. You have 10 minutes to get changed and meet me at the testing grounds. Do not be late. And with that, Aizawa did a 180 and walked out of the classroom as the children scrambled madly to find their outfits in his peripheral vision. He wondered if it was too late to beg Nezu for a raise. Aizawa found his will to live shrinking exponentially throughout the testing. There were many reasons for this. Partially, it was because Bakugo was constantly declaring his superiority and how he was going to beat Midoriya with a confidence that was, if I'm to be honest, downright terrifying. Mineta going around hassling all the girls was also not helpful. Aizawa vowed that if the pervert got last, he would make good on his promise to expel him. There was also the slight issue of Midoriya. That's a lie. Midoriya was the main issue. Nothing slight about it. Aizawa suspected that would be the case in most situations. The boy seemed to sacrifice his limbs the same way one might throw out old leftovers, without concern and only minimal deliberation. If I use my left leg for the long jump, then it will be harder to run the 50. Wait, I could just use my right and jump the whole thing, but then my sideways jump score will be trash. I can dislocate my back for the toe touch to make up for it, though, and then my left hand for the grip strength, and my right for the softball throw. Yeah, that should work. Aizawa struggled to hear Midoriya's mutters, and even after getting closer, he doubted he had heard correctly, until he watched with his own two eyes as Midoriya passed each test both with flying colors and broken bones. It took several minutes for Aizawa's brain to catch up to his eyes. Halfway through the testing, Midoriya was already limping with 2 broken legs and what appeared to be a completely shattered left hand, and the kid was fine? Literally no sign of pain, and even Bakugo acted like it was totally normal, that his friend was completely broken, only stopping to tell him how he was definitely going to beat him. The rest of the class seemed quite baffled upon watching Midoriya as well. However, they considered the fact that one of their classmates had both a bird head and a sentient shadow, while another was quite literally invisible, and decided that a boy who broke all his bones in a burst of super strength wasn't that weird. This reasoning did not help Aizawa from feeling that the entire situation was extremely confusing. He later internally blamed this confusion for causing him to have an idea, which in hindsight was perhaps not entirely smart. In his defense, he was only aware that Midoriya had a strength quirk, as his file did not list any specifics such as his inability to feel pain or the healing aspect of his quirk. This meant that Aizawa was privy to only the knowledge that a student was knowingly breaking his bones in order to pass what should have been a very simple placement test. Still, using his quirk on the boy was perhaps one of the worst things he could have done. But let me reiterate that Aizawa should not be blamed for what followed. In his mind, he was simply doing what was the sanest option in an insane situation, stopping a student from shattering his one remaining arm during the ball throw. Now, the simple fact was that Midoriya was now in possession of 2 separate quirks, Adrenaline Rush and One for All. While technically speaking, the two had merged to become Hysterical Strength, Midoriya still thought of them as separate. Perhaps that is why Aizawa was only able to erase one of them as he activated his quirk. Midoriya threw the ball with literal human super strength as he activated One for All. Unfortunately, he did so only a fraction of a second after Aizawa activated his quirk in an attempt to stop Midoriya from hurting himself more. This had the opposite effect of suddenly erasing the effectiveness of Adrenaline Rush, and leaving Midoriya with 4 broken limbs and the feeling of excruciating pain for the first time in a decade. This, as you can imagine, was not entirely pleasant, and Midoriya reacted in the typical manner for those in immense agony. He screamed. The scream was loud and long and continued even as Midoriya collapsed to the ground like a rag doll. It suddenly dissolved into a string of half-garbled profanities. Freaking heck, dang, bang it. Realizing that something was very wrong, Aizawa immediately blinked, stopping his quirk. This was actually mostly an instinctual activation, as inwardly he was freaking out as he realized he had just killed a kid. He hadn't. And even if he had, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. After all, Midoriya is immortal. Although, on that note, it remains to be seen if he would actually come back to life if he was to die while Aizawa had his quirk active. Forgive me for not wanting to test that. As soon as his quirk cut off, the screaming did too. So that's pain! Wow, what a rush! Midoriya jumped to his feet, seemingly back to normal. His smile faltered a bit. I don't think I actually liked that. The hell happened? Bakugo yelled at him. He sounded quite angry, but in actuality he was simply confused. It is very easy to mix up these emotions with Bakugo, as to an outsider there was no discernible difference. Aizawa was still rather shocked at the unexpected situation, a common symptom of Midoriya's trademarked teacher trauma, and made no move to explain. Luckily, Midoriya jumped in right away. That's Eraserhead's quirk, isn't it cool? It was even able to ride my quirk's pain suppressors. The last end of his sentence was directed at Aizawa. The teacher realized that Midoriya was trying to help him by offering an explanation for his reaction. It made sense. The pain suppressant aspect of his quirk explained why he hadn't seemed to mind getting injured. Still, your approach to this testing is illogical. Do you intend to become incapacitated and have someone save you? Mr. Aizawa, sir, I am simply trying to show you what I can do. Also, as part of my quirk, I can heal myself when I need to. That wasn't on your file. And it really should have been, Aizawa thought. He was going to have a talk with whoever decided that it would be a good idea to ignore that crucial information and nearly cause him to have a heart attack. Midoriya shrugged. Well, I can. I don't really need to worry too much about being safe or taking it easy, because thanks to my quirk, there's not much of a downside to going full on plus ultra all the time. Aizawa did not have a proper rebuttal to this, and still being a little rattled as he was, he simply sighed and put a hand to his temple. Fair enough. I'm going to check how long this is. Chapter 9, First Impressions, Part 3. Spoiler. He dies. Summary. Emperor Aizawa declares that there shall be no murder. How? Bakugo screamed and launched himself at Midoriya upon seeing the scoreboard. Aizawa, having expected this reaction, and knowing how it would turn out, had his capture weapon at the ready and used it to restrain the explosive boy. There will be no murder today. Aizawa squirmed against his bonds, desperately attempting to reach Midoriya. The funny thing was, neither of them got first place. That honor belonged to Todoroki, but the slight difference between third and fourth place was enough to make Bakugo explode, literally, with anger. In your face, Midoriya taunted, only angering Bakugo more. Midoriya, I would greatly appreciate it if you did not provoke the exploding child. But it's fun! No, Aizawa sighed, and turned to the rest of the class. Also, I was lying about expelling someone. Only because Hagakure got last instead of Mineta, he thought. Oh well, I'm sure there'll be plenty more chances to expel him. Just a logical ruse, he continued to the chagrin of the class. Anyways, we're done here. Get to lunch. Go on without me. I got to take care of this. Midoriya waved a broken arm at Bakugo. Save me a spot. Yeah, sure, whatever. Bakugo looked at his arm with disgust. Just make it quick. I don't want to hang around these nerds for very long. Aw, does poor Kacha not want to make any friends? Midoriya mocked. You better fucking hurry before I decide to speed along the process myself, he growled. Midoriya simply laughed before skipping off to find a bathroom in which to kill himself. Hey, Bakugo turned around to see Uraraka waving him over. It wasn't like he wanted to go sit by her, it was simply out of convenience and the lack of empty tables. Still, he found himself carrying his tray over to where she and Ida were sitting. The hell do you want, round face? Uraraka, she corrected, unfazed. And you're Kachan, right? She wiggled an eyebrow mischievously. Shut up, stupid round face! Uraraka. Can't fucking call me that! Language, Ida interjected. But isn't that what Midoriya called you? She asked, feigning ignorance. That he doesn't count, Bakugo sputtered. Oh? Uraraka put a hand to her mouth. Don't tell me. Is he your boyfriend? Bakugo scrunched up his face in utter disgust. Ew! Hell no! That would... Hey, why are you laughing at me, bitch? Uraraka was in fact laughing to the point of choking on the sip of water she had unwisely taken only moments after asking. This was because Bakugo's expression was that of someone who had been expecting a mouthful of water, but was instead treated to the taste of spoiled milk, with a bug in it. Sorry, Uraraka struggled to regain control of her lungs. I'll stop messing with you now, I swear. That would be advisable, Ida said, as... It is not very heroic to mock your friends. Who said I'm friends with you, prissy bastard? Bakugo sneered. Ida's jaw dropped. Why, you... So, Uraraka interrupted, where is Midoriya? I thought he'd be with you. Nerd had to go clean up from the testing. His quirk has a healing aspect, doesn't it? Good thing, too. I remember watching him get crushed in the entrance exam. I thought he was dead for sure. She gasped. Wait! You're the exploding demon he was talking about. Bakugo rolled his eyes. Anyway, you didn't seem too concerned about its injuries. Does that happen a lot? Way too fucking often, Bakugo muttered. How does his quirk work? Ida asked, having recovered from his profanity-induced shock. I haven't seen him heal himself, so I assume there is some kind of prerequisite needed, but I'm unsure as to what. Why am I even talking to you extras? Bakugo asked, dodging the question. Because Midoriya's not here, and you're bored, Uraraka said. It was completely true, and he knew it, but Bakugo being Bakugo, there was no way he would admit it. He was unable to think of a clever rebuttal, which, while uncommon, was not necessarily unheard of for Bakugo. Shut up, he eventually grumbled. She did not. Meanwhile, Midoriya had finally found a bathroom. He set his bag on the counter and began to dig around it. Probably no knife. Don't want too much blood, he muttered to himself. I could probably just break my neck. No, that would look like foul play if anyone walked in before I was done. You see, Midoriya was ill-prepared to reset at school. In the past, he just dealt with his injuries, or if they were bad enough, called his mother to take him home. This was no longer an option, as he was well aware that he would most likely continue to sustain huge injuries and need to take care of them at school. He, however, prepared a vast array of materials that would be great for killing himself. Unfortunately, the majority of them would be quite messy, as well as being more or less illegal. Heck yeah, he said after finding a little baggie with several small pills. I didn't think I had any left. Midoriya was holding a quick-acting poison, the acquisition of which is a story for another time, that was incredibly lethal. He would know. Down the hatch! While it was lunch for the students, the teachers also had their own break. This was good, as Aizawa sorely needed the rest. He also, as is with most humans, needed to use a bathroom. Now, while there was a staff-only restroom near their offices, it was clear across the school, and Aizawa had no intention of walking that far when the restrooms near the cafeteria were perfectly usable. This was a reasonable intent, with only one problem. Midoriya was in that restroom. This meant that Aizawa opened the door to see a student spasming on the bathroom floor right in front of one of the stalls, while a thick white foam poured from his mouth, which, as you can imagine, was not exactly a pretty sight, nor was it a wanted sight, or an expected sight. It was, at least for Aizawa, incredibly disturbing. Nope. Now, while the reasonable response would most likely be to check and make sure that Midoriya was okay, Aizawa was on his last straw as it was, so it was that he simply left the now unconscious boy, and turned around and closed the door. He then proceeded to make his way to the staff bathroom after deciding it was probably worth the extra walk. For the rest of his break, he tried his best to forget about what he had seen. He did not. I'm gonna check how long this is. I think I can fit another part of this chapter. Chapter 9, First Impressions, Part 4, Dressed to Intimidate. Summary. Linear timelines are for cowards. Izuku, these extras are harassing me. Good for them. You could use a good harassing, said Midoriya as he sat down in between Uraraka and Bakugo a few minutes after recovering from his death. What the fuck? Don't take their side, asshole. Thank you for keeping an eye on him, Midoriya said to Uraraka, blatantly ignoring Bakugo. I know he can be a handful. I do hope he didn't bite anyone. He reached over to ruffle Bakugo's hair. Hey, cut that out, dipshit. Bakugo violently ripped Midoriya's hand away. Damn it, you got your fucking glitter in my food. Deal with it. Uraraka giggled. I think he was about ready to kill Ida, but other than that, I simply corrected his poor grammar, Ida interjected. I'll correct your face. It's your, not your, Ida said. The fuck does that even mean? The banter did not stop for the remainder of lunch. In fact, Bakugo continued to yell up until the start of class. It was fun, Midoriya decided. For quite some time, it had been just him and Bakugo, and the occasional lackey who was drawn in by Bakugo's confidence. They never stayed for long. Uraraka seemed far less shy now that he had gotten to know her, and Ida, as stuck-up as he might have been, was just as stubborn as Bakugo, which made for an entertaining duo. The rest of the afternoon progressed smoothly. They met their other teachers, each one subjected to Midoriya's constant fanboying, and began to settle in as they became familiar with the school and their classmates. The day ended with Aizawa returning for the last 10 minutes, just in time to stop Bakugo from blowing up Ida, who had corrected his grammar once again. Specifically, he was attempting to explain the difference between two and two, the auditory distinguishment of which is only possible for those aware of the fourth wall. Upon using his quirk, it was brought to Aizawa's attention that several students had been under the impression that his quirk was excruciating pain causer, and that the name Eraserhead referred to, as Kaminari put it, you erase the things in our head that say no pain. This came as a surprise for Midoriya, as he assumed it would only be obvious what their teacher's quirk was after seeing it in action this morning. It was not. You see, the only thing the students had seen was Midoriya falling to the ground in agony, him explaining it away by saying it was Aizawa's quirk, then providing a vague explanation on how he hadn't felt pain since his quirk came in, so he was slightly unprepared. As you can imagine, the obvious conclusion from this would be the one that nearly 75% of the class came to, that their teacher was somehow allowed to literally torture his students using his quirk. But I digress. Eventually, the students began to file out, presumably so that they could go home and prepare for the next day. Midoriya and Bakugo were about to follow suit until Aizawa stopped them. Midoriya, I'd like to talk to you for a bit. Now, Midoriya was no stranger to being held after class. You may even recall that talking to his former teacher was actually how he came into contact with the sludge villain. Luckily, he hadn't developed a talking to teachers after class phobia from that event, so he was perfectly content to tell Bakugo to go on without him. You're always ditching me, loser, Bakugo grumbled. Does Kacchan need help walking home? Midoriya said in a babying tone. Fuck you. I'll come to your house after school. After, okay? Be fast, the hag's making Katsudon. Midoriya's face brightened. Heck yeah, I'll be there. Aizawa motioned for Midoriya to take a seat before he pulled up a chair himself. First, I must apologize for this morning. I had no idea your quirk would react that way. I was simply afraid of you injuring yourself beyond repair. I'm glad to see that you're back to normal now. No biggie. My healing and pain tolerance isn't in my quirk description, so I can see how you were confused. Midoriya waved away his teacher's concern, which is a serious oversight in itself. Only sometimes. Aizawa shook his head. As long as you're okay, I suppose. Midoriya bounced in his seat, which, in a way, proved his okayness. The second thing I wanted to discuss is your hero costume. He pulled out a sheet of paper showing the official blueprint for the design he and Bakugo had decided on nearly 6 weeks prior. I apologize for interrupting this scene with Aizawa, as I am sure that you would find it absolutely hilarious. However, I feel it necessary to commence a slight flashback so that you might know exactly how the design for Midoriya's costume came to fruition. As such, I will now turn your attention to roughly a month and a half before the first day of school, specifically to the moment in which Midoriya was showing his friend his costume plan. It's trash, Bakugo said as he exclaimed as he examined Midoriya's sketch. What? I thought it looked good! Bakugo scoffed. Not even a little bit. The colors are all wrong, the style is so unflattering, and don't get me started on that train wreck of a face covering. Yeah, well, what do you know about fashion anyways? I think it looks great. Izu, my parents are literally designers. I think I know a thing or two about style. Fine then, how would you do it? Midoriya crossed his arms. Bakugo whipped out a pencil and began to scribble over the design. Oi! Midoriya squeaked. First, with that hoodie. It looks like a shitty Easter Bunny cosplay. I thought it was cool. For a 5-year-old maybe, but this will be your costume for the rest of your life. And I am not gonna let you go looking like a green All Might wannabe. Ouch! The color coordination is all wrong. Without the hoodie, you'll look like a stick of boiled broccoli. Why on earth did you put so much green? I don't know, Midoriya rolled his eyes. Maybe because it's like my color? So you use it as an accent. Here, Bakugo added a few notes to the drawing. Switched the black and the green. The black won't stand out as much for stealth missions, and the green just adds to the overall design. Huh, that's not actually half bad. That's what you get for doubting me, dumbass. Any other suggestions? Bakugo grinned wickedly. Oh, should I be concerned? Hell no, you should be thankful. He turned his attention back to the paper and began to fix it once more at a frantic rate that matched his tone. Out with the shoulder pads. Literally why? Well, I thought, don't care. Math guard thing also has to go. No need for some demented smile thing that does absolutely nothing. Hold up, Midoriya interjected. I need something for my face. No, you don't. What? But even you have a mask. Listen closely, Izu, because I'm only going to say this once. You don't need a mask. What? Shut up. The only benefit to a mask is to keep your identity safe, stylistic preference, and to intimidate villains. Bakugo held up a finger to emphasize each point. You're fucking immortal, and I know you don't care about style, so that's out, and you don't need to worry about the rest. Wait, what do you mean? Bakugo groaned. Are you really going to make me spell this out for you? I think at this point, clarification is necessary, yes. Look, you can already be intimidating when you want to. You don't need a mask for that. Not that this stupid smile mouth guard would accomplish that anyways. What? Kacchan, I am most definitely not intimidating. Well, not typically, Bakugo threw his hands in the air.
But, like, sometimes when you're pissed or something, you get all threatening and it's fucking freaky. You smile really wide and you kind of look like you want to eat someone. And sometimes it's during a fight, so there's just, like, blood trickling down your face. It's seriously messed up. Midoriya blinked. Kachan, was that an attempt at a compliment? I would like to interrupt and say that typically calling a person's face and, I quote, fucking freaky is not normally regarded as a compliment. But as it is Bakugo we are talking about here, that's about as close as it gets. Hell no, I'm just proving my point. Got it, so no mask. Exactly. But you think my face is intimidating? I'm moving on. Yeah, alright, that's fair. These gloves are dumb. You want to look like a fucking hedgehog? What? Midoriya asked, confused, as most people would be, on how having gloves could in any way, shape, or form warrant being compared to a hedgehog. Sonic, keep up, Bakugo said. Make them fitted and a little longer, halfway to your elbows. And put some knuckle dusters on them too, to give your punches a little zest. I must correct Bakugo, as zest was perhaps not the best word to use in this situation. One could use blood, pain, or if you're feeling adventurous, both physical and mental turmoil. This is because these are all perfectly reasonable products of knuckle dusters, whereas zest is not. Okay, colors still suck. Make them red like your shoes. Are you done yet? Nope, maybe if you hadn't had such a shitty design in the first place, I wouldn't have to change so much. Midoriya sighed. Fine, just hurry up, would ya? Gotta get rid of the sleeves, too. Say what? Oh, please, I've seen you punch with One for All. Do you really think that any sleeves would survive that? Hey, you just want me to match you. So, it only makes sense that the top two heroes have similar costumes. No, it doesn't. That is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Although I'm flattered you would be willing to match the number one hero, that takes a lot of confidence. You, dumbass, I'm going to be the number one hero. Sure you are. Bakugo growled and pushed his chair back. I'll show you. Can't we have this fight after my costume is done? Fine, but this is not over. Midoriya looked down at the edited sketch. Actually, I think it looks pretty good right now. Are we done? No. Bakugo stared at the paper as it had personally offended him. It's still missing something. Well, you're the fashionista here. I got it! Bakugo yelled, ignoring Midoriya's job. Do you have a gold pen? Yeah? Give it. Midoriya complied. Bakugo drew atop the sketch, adding a gold stripe to each glove, gold buttons on his red utility belt, and gold lace on his boots. Laces on his boots. Perfect. Oh, I like that actually quite a bit. What did I fucking tell you? Now, if that wasn't a costume worthy of a hero, then I don't know what is. The number one hero. Why, you! Bakugo yelled as he launched himself at Midoriya. Luckily, the sketch managed to survive the encounter, and by some turn of fate, and thus Midoriya's outfit was decided. Thank you for listening. This has been Hysterical, and make sure you comment, leave a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. I will see you guys next time.